Hey everyone, what's up? Yeah, no, you might be thinking it's a little late or early or whatever, depending on how you watch this. Um, but yeah, this is just a little live thing I want to do real quickly, whether people will tune in or not. So hopefully you'll watch it later when it's uploaded. But yeah, this is a little bit of a series. Maybe it might be a series, but a little bit of a test for a new series. Where I quickly talk about, well, hopefully quickly talk about a couple of topics, and three I want to talk about right now. Have been Well, one has been talked about for so many years. This past weekend, we had an episode that basically still built upon that, and I think fans might be a little surprised by that. Um, and then we have two other things that I've talked about in an audio deal separately. One that looks promising, and one that is basically created a lot of backlash, if you know what I mean. So the first one I want to talk about is Netflix and DreamWorks Animation later this year debuting Shera. It's a new take on Shera. It's basically a retelling of Shera, whose real name is Princess Adora, and she is the twin sister of Prince Adam, who is He-Man of the Masters of the Universe line. Uh, Here, I guess it's going to retell her origin, but from what I understand, she's going to be guided by five other princesses in her quest to defeat Hordak, and she's going to become the leader of these five. So I guess Netflix is going to give She-Ra her own main group, her own main six, if you know what I mean. Um, but all we know is that they're going to guide her, they're going to teach her, I guess, to use the powers, but we don't know exactly what they're going to get out of it. Again, we thought I heard something there. Again, we don't know what they're going to get out of it. Um, I know that from what I can tell, I can just Google this real quickly. From what I can tell, the characters on here are going to be Princess Adora, of course, Shira, Glimmer, who I mistakenly called Glitter, but Glimmer, Catra, Bo, Angelina, or Angela, Shadow Weaver, Hordak, of course, Scorpana, Entrapta, Perfuma, Seahawk, Murmastia, 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 I can't think of her name right now. Murmerstead. You got Frosta, you got Castaspella, and Nistra, Nestura, Netossa, Nistura, I guess. So from what I can tell, Glimmer, Bow, um, uh, M- uh, Marestra, excuse me, Forrester, I think are going to be part of this group of power. Now, the series, from what I'm reading here on Wikipedia, is being developed by Nola Stevenson, who is known for the Lumberjills series, or Lumberjane series, and she is a strong advocate for LGBTQ. or LGBT. So I'm not going to be surprised that this is also going to be on Netflix, that she might sneak in a few LGBT elements in the series and might even make some of the established characters that we know from the original, maybe one or two of the princesses of power that accompany Shera. I wouldn't be surprised if she makes them into LGBT characters. Maybe even Hordak is going to have a few LGBT characters on his side. We don't know. Um, excuse me. Now, according to what Wikipedia says, She-Ra and the Princesses of Power is an upcoming animated action-adventure television series produced by DreamWorks Animation Television. It is a reboot of the '85 Filmation series, She-Ra, Princess of Power. Developed by Nola Stevenson, the series will follow Princess Adora, who, after finding a magic sword, sorry about that, who, after finding a magic sword, turns into the powerful She-Ra. She will be guided by new princesses as she joins the rebellion and rages the battle against the evil forces of Hordak. So she's going to be guided. So the princesses she's going to team up with are also going to be like guides or something, like teachers. I kind of feel a little bit of an MLP vibe to that, if you know what I mean. Because when you think about it, Twilight was when she came into Ponyville and befriended Pinkie, Rarity, Rainbow Dash, Flutter, and Apple. They helped guide her. That by befriending them, they helped guide her into becoming who she is. Even and eventually, she became like their leader and stuff like that. But you kind of get the idea. So yeah, it kind of gives me that vibe. But here's what it kind of gets confusing for me. We know that when she uses the magic sword, she's going to have to say by the honor of Grayskull or something like that, and she'll become She-Ra. But what do these other princesses get out of it? Do they become like She-Ra like beings? Um, do they fuse with Adora to become She-Ra? That would be a unique take. I don't know. Right? Does one fuse with the other and they become a new kind of like powerful princess to help in the battle? We don't know. It's going to be unique to see. It's going to be kind of interesting to see the unique take on that that DreamWorks and Netflix and Nola Stevenson take on Shira here, because you don't know what kind of changes they might give her. You know, like I said, if they go with the fact that the only way Shira, comes around is, perhaps she has to fuse with the other princesses to become Shira. We don't know. We don't know if maybe the princesses will get their own powers or something like that when she raises up the sword. I mean, we know in the original her pet horse, Spirit becomes Swiftwind when he gets infected by the sword. I mean, it's like after she holds it up, becomes Shira, she points it to the side here and right towards Spirit, and he becomes Swiftwind. So you got to wonder. I mean, we know apparently that's probably going to happen, but you got to wonder, what else is going to happen? You got to, like I said, how is she going to become Shira? It's just going to be traditional. That'd be great, but you got that now. But now you have to tie in the whole princesses deal, because it's not Shira, Princess of Power. It's Shira and the Princesses of Power. So you got to wonder how they're going to play a role in it. Will they get their own, unique upgrades? Like I said, when she becomes Shira and they become, more powerful versions of themselves, or will they fuse together with Adora to become Shira. Another unique thing about this is the princesses that she encounters are going to know Shira. Unlike in the original series, as far as I know, these princesses that are going to guide her and help her are going to know exactly that Adora and Shira are one and the same. That's if unless, like I said, the way she becomes Shira, the way she becomes Shira is she has to fuse with these other characters, these other princesses, when she lifts up the magic sword. So, a lot of possibilities. Netflix does have a good track record when it comes to working with other animation studios like DreamWorks and all that uh, to debut reboots or retellings of classic 80s and 90s series, animated series. You want a good example of that? Look at Voltron. I mean, they took Voltron and basically made it into something that could not only work today but could have worked in the past. In the past, when the original series was out. I mean, the fact that they took Midge, who was the scientist, kind of like the geeky young scientist uh, boy of the group, and completely changed Pidge's origin, not Midge, but Pidge's origin, and turned Pidge from a boy into a girl who went undercover as Pidge to find her brother. The fact that they have taken their time to get Princess Aurora into the Blue Lion, it's like, not that, not looking back on it, it's like we can understand that, it was the 80s and you wanted to kind of have that attraction of, hey, here's this female in the Blue Lion, the female pilot for the Voltron Force. So I can understand it was kind of a rush, and back then you got to remember that the Voltron we had was basically was kind of a compilation of the original Go Line, just edited together to be Voltron. But here, they took their time and they built to that moment. It's like you knew that this could not be Voltron if you didn't have Aurora piloting the Blue Line somehow. And those people behind the scenes at DreamWorks that worked on the series, they knew that. They knew, hey, we can't make this Voltron. This can't really be truly Voltron until Aurora's piloting the Blue Line, and they found a way around that. They found a way around to get to that, and they built to it. It's like you knew the moment was coming, and they slowly built to it, and they gave us a reason. So hopefully, with Shira and the Princesses of Power, we'll get that same kind of feeling. And like I said, I don't know exactly, what the other princesses are going to get out of this. Whether or not they're going to get aids, and become like Shira, like alter egos to who they are at that moment, or who they are before that, or they're going to have to fuse with Shira, or fuse with Adora to become Shira. We don't know. So hopefully we'll get more information as time goes on. Um, and again, don't be surprised, if you might have, if Nola Stevenson, with all due respect, sneaks in a few LGBT references, moments, and even probably switches up some established characters, heroes, and villains, female wise, to be LGBT like characters, if you catch my drift. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But from what the poster I'm seeing right now, it looks, I will agree with Zara Nazarak. It looks, Zara Nazarak of the Multimedia Chronicles, it looks promising. It looks very optimistic. I'm very optimistic about it. So can't wait for that. Um, Now let's talk about the other thing that's kind of really got people that a lot of people that grew up in the 80s, like I did, like Zara Nizarak did, like many people, like Rob of Planet Rob, Rob the Wonderful, and many others. Uh, let's talk about the one thing that's got every person that was an 80s kid that grew up at that time. That was a early 2010s kid and and teen, an older fan like me that grew up. No, well, grew up, but well, didn't grow up, but ended up watching the new reboot from Cartoon Network. Let's talk about the one thing that's got everybody up in an uproar, if you will, and that's the announcement by Cartoon Network and Warner Brothers Animation that there is going to be a new ThunderCats cartoon, and this new ThunderCats cartoon is called ThunderCats Roar. And I already did a video on it, and all I can say is exactly what I said in that video. You know, if you're going to do something like this, then quite honestly, what you need to do, and this is the truth, if I'm this Victor guy, who is the producer, the head guy in charge of this at Warner Brothers Animation, if I'm this Victor guy and I say I'm a true fan, then I go back, I take all the backlash that a lot of fans and even critics have had about this. I take, I go back, I look at it, I listen to it, and I start making a few tweaks here and there to try to keep this as true and close to Thundercats as it as I'm saying it will be. Because if I'm this Victor guy and I just continue going the path that I'm going with this series, with the idea for this series, whether or not it's good, you're not gonna whether or not it proves everybody wrong and it's good, um, you're not going to be able to bounce back from this because people will be like, yeah, it's all right and everything, but still, we don't want you're going to have what I'm saying is they're going to have people probably petition Warner Brothers Animation to say, don't let this guy near any more nostalgic 80s or 90s properties because pretty much we don't need another Teen Titans Go because that's what they feel this is turning into is a Teen Titans Go. And what's funny is this is not just going to backlash on him. It's going to currently backlash on Christine Miller, who is the head of Cartoon Network. Already you got people saying, "Hey, enough's enough. This is the final straw. This girl, this woman's got to go. She don't know what she's doing." And they might be right. But I look at it this way. I look at it this way. If if this series proves to be as successful as, let's say, Steven Universe, then she knows what she's doing. But if this turns out to be a flop, then yeah, I think maybe, with all due respect, Warner Brothers needs to start counting the losses and maybe either give her walking papers, which I don't want to see because I don't want to see anybody lose their job. I don't want to see that. Nobody does. Or at least demote her to a position to where maybe if you want to bring her back to that position, she can shadow, she can learn from what she sees. So we'll have to wait and see what they do. Um, but but the way I look at it, it's like I said, you want to do a few comedic episodes, that's fine. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with that. But if you're saying it's going to be true to Thundercats, then like I said, I take all that backlash people are giving me, and I use it as well as the critics are giving me, and I use it to tweak this series so that yes, I'll be able to keep the comedic elements I want and maybe have a few comedic episodes here and there, but I stay true to that dark, gritty seriousness side of ThunderCats that the original and even the 2011 what that the original was, and that even the 2011 caught the captured the spirit of. So that's what I would do. I mean, like I said, if they want to do an episode comedic wise to where Tigra kisses Chitara on the lips and suddenly she just collapses into a puddle of goo, basically melts, if you will, then fine, go ahead. But you need to have something to balance it out, and that's that dark, serious tone that Thundercats has been known for. I mean, yes, it did have comedic moments, it did have comedic elements, but it was more about the drama, the action, the storytelling, and when it came down to it, being as serious as any animated show that I knew of. So, so again, like I said, if I'm if I'm this Victor guy, I take all this negativity that's getting thrown at me. I get take all the shade that's being thrown at me. I take all this criticism and I use it to tweak the show so that when it does premiere, not only do I get what I want, but I give the longtime fans and the newer fans something that they'll enjoy in the long run. So that's all I have to say on that. Excuse me. That's all I have to say on that. And one last thing. One last thing. This past weekend, we had the episode Break Up, Break Down. The 10th episode of ML, I think the 10th episode of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 8. Basically, a Hearts and Hooves / Valentine's Day episode. Basically, as some people put it, a Big Mac Sugar Bell episode, get co-starring Spike and Discord, or whatever. So, I haven't seen the episode. I have a DVR. I'm probably going to record it before I go to work today. Onto my DVD, that is. Courtesy of my DVD recorder. But anyway, but from what I understand, from what I've heard and read, what's this episode? I talked about this a couple months ago, and I talked about it recently. I believe Big Mac and Sugar Bell and Mudbearer and Mod Pie, well, basically Mod and Big Mac, were used as testing ground. They were used as test characters to see if romance might fly in the series as we get later on in its run. And apparently it's succeeding, and apparently the tests are proving to be a success because this episode was the second in what I consider could be a trilogy of Big Mac Sugar Bell episodes, culminating possibly with a wedding episode, maybe in season 9. Who knows? Um, but here, it wasn't just okay. It wasn't just about Big Mac and Sugar Bell. A majority of it was about them and the relationship and all that, and that's good. Um, it even focused. It even surprisingly focused on a little bit on the CMCs, mostly Sweetie Belle, who, like Rarity, takes after her sister Rarity, and is kind of the romantic type. Well, I guess it's kind of the romantic type. I'm not really sure. Um. Anyway, getting back on topic here. The one thing that this show likes to do is basically throw hints and clues and references at us that we as the adult fan base will get, but the younger fan base will not. For example, there's a moment, from what I understand, with Lyra and Bon Bon exchanging gifts, on Hearts and Who's Day. Really? Lyra and Bonbon? Uh, you do mean the two ponies that essentially, even in the Equestria Girls form, are basically a Yuri lesbian couple, right? A couple that the LGBT community would be proud of, right? So you're just saying, oh, they're just the best of friends, right? The person behind, what was it, Jim Miller? You're just saying, oh, they're just friends. They're just really, really good friends. Jim, if you ever watch this video, who do you think you're kidding? Who do you, Megan, Nicole, M.A. Larson, Jason Teresa, who do you guys think you're kidding? I mean, we get maybe the young kids won't understand that, but we're adults. We see right through it. We can see that Lyra and Bonbon are an item, and we can understand that the reason you can't come out and directly say it is because this is still viewed as a kid's show, not as a show that you would see on Adult Swim or Animation Domination on Fox. I get that. I get that, okay? I get that. But it's not just Lyra and Bonbon that gets acknowledged or referenced here or something like that. How about what's known to shippers as Fluttercord? Fluttershy and Discord get referenced, acknowledged, and officialized here, in a sense, by a whole character, Spike. Yeah, Spike is the one that acknowledges it. Spike, in a way, kind of is the one that references it. Spike, in a way, is kind of the one on-screen character, main character that basically officializes it. Because what's his counterpoint to Discord? When Discord basically tries to brush off the whole, oh, I don't really believe in love kind of deal. I'm not that kind of way kind of deal. What's Spike's response? Oh, really? And I guess going almost every weekend over to Fluttershy, or her going to your place every weekend for tea, it's just casual, right? Or something like that. Basically, the writing staff uses Spike to acknowledge Fluttercord as official, semi-official, if you will. But then we get to the one moment. And I was looking at the comment sections at the MLP forums. And somebody there mentioned that Spike did a poem for Rarity. Really? So I had to look this up myself. I looked up at the MLP FIM Wikipedia page, or Wiki forums. You get the idea. The MLP Wiki page. Looked at the episode, looked down at the transcript, and lo and behold, as Spike is giving a Discord a tour of the town during Hearts and Hooves Day to show that, hey, no matter what you say or do, love is in the air, and here's the evidence. What's he do? Here's what he does. And I can pull this up real quickly. Pull this up real quickly. Here's the moment. I think it's here. It's right here. Here it is. Basically, This is the line that Spike gives Discord as he's showing him around town doing Hearts and Who's Day. This is what he says because Discord he wants to play the equivalent of a certain RPG game that I'm not going to mention because I live in a Christian household. But this is Spike's response. He says, and I quote, as a great dragon poet once wrote to his beloved, hear that, beloved. He says, I love you. This is what he was using this poem that he had wrote for Rarity, and I guess was going to give Rarity. This is what he says, and I quote, this is the part of the poem he was using as an example, and I guess was going to give Rarity later on. He says, I love you with the utmost clarity. I love you, dear, my sweet, sweet Rarity. Get it? So when I see a line like that, and um this is after they make a wager where Spike has to prove love means something to Discord and that Discord is capable of that as well. He uses his own poem that he's going to give Rarity or has given Rarity or something like that as an example. So let me understand this. When this episode aired this past Saturday, we were a week away from episode 11, Meltdown, which is essentially a Spike Rarity episode, or focuses on them somewhat, but mostly the changes that Spike goes through. But oh, guess what? Rarity's got a situation she's going through. And there is a possibility you might even touch upon this later on in the series with Father Knows Beast, maybe. But correct me if I'm wrong, ladies and gentlemen. But in the same episode where they basically referenced, hinted, and visually showed Lyra and Bonbon as an item, something that only adult fans would get, as well as at the same time had of all characters Spike basically come out and semi-officially acknowledged the shipping of Fluttershy and Discord. You have basically Spike using as an example a poem that he has wrote for Rarity for Hearts and Who's Day to try to get Discord of how important this holiday is. And the reason I bring this up is a lot of people would probably think by now Spike would be over this, right? And you would think that the writing staff would acknowledge that, right? Well, if the writing staff did acknowledge it, this episode don't seem like they did. It doesn't show it here in this episode. Because you know why? Because Sparity's still a thing. Sparity is canon. And again, just like with Lyra and Bonbon, and even Fluttercord, if you will, they can't really do anything. They can't touch any of that with a 5 to 10 foot pole. Not until possibly the last season. And why? Because they don't want to screw up the dynamic of the show? Okay. Okay, fine. You don't want to ruin the dynamic, but pretty much Hasbro, you've already ruined the dynamic. DHX, you've already ruined the dynamic when you took one of the most popular semi-major characters, back secondary characters in Big Mac, and gave him a girlfriend in Sugarbelle, and then which was last season, And then this season, you do the exact same thing with Maud Pie by giving her a love interest in Mud Bearer or Mud Briar. So you don't want to ruin the dynamic, but yet you've already done it with those characters. So now I guess this episode is kind of your way of acknowledging that, yeah, we know about these ships. We know what you, the adult bronies and Pegasisters, analysis community, and all that want to see happen. But yet you are basically saying that you acknowledge it, but you can't do anything about it. So, folks, let me ask you this. If you were Hasbro, if you were DHX, and you didn't want to ruin the dynamic of a show, would you go and do what you did with two of the most popular semi-major secondary characters in the show's history and pair them up with a girlfriend and a boyfriend in two separate seasons? Or or would you have the gusto to not only do that, but at the same time finally come out and acknowledge that yes, there is something there romantically between characters like Fluttershy and Discord and Spike and Rarity? Would you finally at least come out and say there is something there, and maybe even admit that and maybe even come out and say that, and even come out and at least acknowledge that the reason you can't do anything is because this is still a kid show. It's still viewed as a kid show, and parents of kids that love the show may not understand it or accept it. I mean, so let me understand that. Let me understand this. That you use this episode to at least still acknowledge Spike and Rarity, a pairing that I support, a pairing that a majority of the Brony and Pegasus and Analysis and Secret Rift in the Rift Cafe and the Secret Rift Cafe community acknowledges and supports. You still use this episode to acknowledge that a week before an episode that focuses on those two airs officially. I don't get it. Why don't you just make this official? Why don't you go into next season, as you're working on it? I know that. Why don't you use an episode there, maybe the finale, mid finale, whatever, and make Spike and Rarity official? Spike's pretty much going to be grown up by next season anyway. Why not make them a couple and be done with it? I mean, fans have found creative ways to make these two an item. They have. They have found creative ways to do it. One person actually did a web comic on DeviantArt where basically Spike makes this magic spell, a potion that for these 24 hours turns him into a pony who takes Rarity out on a date at a carnival. And this basically builds upon the fact that at the beginning of the comic, Spike wants to tells her how he feels. She kind of tries to slowly bring him down, but then seeing him brokenhearted, kind of realizes maybe that wasn't the best idea, and probably realizes and realizes that that wasn't the best idea, and also realizes, oh crap, I do have feelings for Spike, you know that, and then basically using that as a building point to get from point A to B in that story to where she sees this new pony that's the same color scheme and everything. It's Spike has the same facial look and everything, and it dawns on her like, oh my gosh, you little sneaky rascal, and she decides to go out with him to the carnival, and at the end of the carnival acknowledges that she's known the whole time that it's been that she knows the pony she was out with was Spike. Ike, and she kisses him on. I mean, and she kisses him on the lips, and he changes back at the same time. It's like if somebody could do that in that kind of story, then of all people, DHX Media can do it here. Hasbro and DHX can do it here. If somebody can do a web comic like that on DeviantArt and make it look good and make it enjoyable for people to be that people want to look at it over and over again, then Hasbro and DHX can do something similar here. They can make this happen here. If the comics at IDW can touch upon this, acknowledge it, make it official. Heck, the last panel in the Nightmare Rarity arc, when it's all said and done, is Spike and Rarity next to each other looking at the moon. Along with a friend. And Spike's the one that says the last, and even before that, Spike's the one that says the last thing that's needed to break the spell, break the hold that the nightmare magic has on Rarity. So if the comics can acknowledge that, the IDW comics, which are official licensed comic of the show for Hasbro, then DHX, why can't you? I don't understand that. I really don't. But hopefully as we approach the last season, if season 9's it, they might do it. Because I think with this season officially making Spike grown up, if you know what I mean, officially all adult and everything, I think the time has come. I really do. I mean, heck, you have an episode back in season 2 that touches upon this, and that's when Lauren Faust was in charge. And from what I can tell, Lauren Faust is like one of those that wouldn't even dare touch upon something like that, but she did. So let me understand this. Out of all these 3 things I've talked about, we got potentially a good retcon rebooted version of Shera coming. We got basically, in the eyes of a lot of people, including myself, a slap in the face Teen Titans Go inspired reboot of ThunderCats called ThunderCats Roar. That unless it's balanced out, unless the guy listens to the people, takes that criticism and uses it to tweak the series, make it a perfect balance of comedic and dramatic, is pretty much going to have tons of backlash coming his way even after the series debuts. And then on top of that, you have an episode of MLP FIM season 8 this past Saturday that pretty much acknowledges a lot of stuff that would go over the heads of young kids but not the adult fans, and pretty much confirms that still nearly a decade later, Sparity is officially canon in the series. So, and yet they don't want to do anything about it. Yet. So, anyway, that's all I'm really going to say, folks, on this matter. Let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you all for watching live. Thank you all for watching post live after it's been uploaded, because I know that's how a lot of you are going to probably see this anyway. Let me know what you all think down below. Comment if you like, and maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll continue this as a series down the line in the future. But thank you all for watching. God bless. Take care. I am out. I'm going to get me some Z's before I have to get up for work.